bad news if you're like me and you've been getting a good laugh for years and years and years at this picture of this polar bear on a chunk of melting ice as it's presented to you over and over again, like it's standing on the last glacier out there and that you caused all this damage because you drive your kids to soccer practice in an SUV. It looks like there's some discussion anyway that environmentalists are looking to retire the polar bear picture because it just isn't terrifying enough. They want to now use pictures of people suffering. And this is brought to you by a woman named Fiona Shields in The Guardian. You can see her right here. And it's interesting, right? Like, why aren't they focusing on explaining the science or putting out models that actually work? It's all just a paragraph and a picture and a paragraph and a picture. And I think they've realized that most people have gotten wise to the polar bear hoax. You know, every single year, things freeze up north. Every single year, they melt. And just saying that the world's going to end and putting a picture of a polar bear on a melting ice cube isn't scaring people enough anymore. So let's look at this article. Climate activists seek to ditch polar bear pics as growing populations defy emergency narrative by Victor Skinner, October 30th, 2019. Polar bears are out, and pictures of people in misery after natural disasters and choking on smog are in. Oh boy. The suggested shift what, quote, journalists should focus on when covering the so-called climate emergency comes from The Guardian's picture editor, Fiona Shields, who argues we need new imagery for new narratives. Okay, so they're changing the narrative once again, and they come right out and they tell you this, right? Like, it's not scary enough. There's one other convenient benefit. Polar bears are thriving in the changing climate, an inconvenient truth that contradicts the doom and gloom narrative promoted by climate alarmists. We know from years of experience that people love polar bears and pandas, so it's easy to guilt them. It's easy to see how these appealing creatures have become the emblems for the topics of endangered species and what we previously termed as global warming, Shields wrote. Why did this change? All the cause, all the effects, all the hysteria is the same. Why did you rename it? Maybe for the same reasons that you're changing up your pictures, because nobody is believing in it. Often, when signaling environmental stories to our readers, selecting an image of a polar bear on melting ice has been the obvious, though not necessarily appropriate, choice. Maybe because it has nothing to do with anything. She continued, these images tell a certain story about the climate crisis, but can seem remote and abstract, a problem that is not a human one, nor one that is particularly urgent. The idea to focus instead on pictures of Chinese with smog masks and piles of plastic trash in developing countries comes from a group called Climate Visuals. I guess they don't have climate argument or climate facts. We're just going to scare you with visuals. An arm of the UK Climate Outreach lobbying group. Climate Outreach bills itself as a team of social scientists, not climate scientists, but I don't know if this is psychologists, psychiatrists, what exactly we're terming here as social scientists, but okay, and communication specialists. So this is what they're sending after you to convince you we need one world government, centralize the means of production, and give up all our rights to save Mother Earth, of course. Passionate about helping organizations communicate climate change beyond the green bubble. Shields is all in. She's convinced photos of folks basking in the sun at the beach or enjoying a snowing day sledding with their children are an injustice to climate change. Now, photos of people in the media that are happy is an injustice. We have now been outraged by everything, I think. Journalists should focus on getting the emotional tone of the imagery in line with the issue. The emotional tone is you're guilty, you should be afraid, and you need to hand over all of your money and freedom. I mean, that's what all of these policies boil down to. She wants other climate journalists to join the conversation, which means agree with us, right? They don't want anyone to disagree with them. So, although scenes of children playing in fountains and everyone racing to the beach can be uplifting and irresistible, we have to be mindful of the tone of our journalism, Shields insists. So, let's just watch and see how this plays out. Apparently, journalists are being advised to no longer show uplifting images, no longer show people being happy. Okay. There's another good reason for climate change crusaders to shift away from the pictures of polar bears. The bear populations are booming, which undercuts the narrative that the changing climate is ruining the planet. Native Inuit in parts of Nunavut, Canada, argued last year that polar bear populations are much higher than Canadian scientists think, and demanded the right to manage the bears with Inuit knowledge. I think that's a large bore rifle, rather than Western science, which typically relies on data and computer models. They had a lot of those in 2008 predicting the direction of the stock market, too. Inuit knowledge acknowledges that polar bears are exposed to the effects of climate change, but suggests that they are adaptable. Natives wrote in a proposed management plan, cited by CTV News because they didn't want to completely disagree with the narrative, because they'd be run out of town. Inuit leaders pointed to obvious signs of increasing bear numbers, such as 2 Inuit who were killed by the animals in 2017, and called for reducing numbers in some areas. Inuit believe there are now so many bears that public safety has become a major concern, Inuit leaders wrote. Public safety concerns combined with the effects of polar bears on other species suggests that many Nunavut communities, the polar bear may have exceeded the coexistence threshold. That's a great... I can think of some other things that have exceeded the coexistence threshold, but that's a different video. So let's take a look here at what maybe we can expect in the future of journalism as they try to terrify you. Look at this first one here. A villager shouts for help as a wildfire approaches a house at Casas de Ribeira village in Maciao, central Portugal on July 2019. So if she's running for help, who's this person taking a picture of her? Come on, man. And she's just standing out there, apparently in the wilderness, shrieking and crying while this journalist takes pictures. Way to be a hero. Here we have another picture. Man and his child wear masks to protect them from heavy smog as they visit Waitan in December 2013 in Shanghai, China. Yeah, cities are dirty. I think Asian people do this a lot, though. I see them wearing masks all over. Here we have another one. This is a lot of times they just use pictures of steam plants and tint them dark. I don't know what they're going to say. The industrial landscape across the D estuary at sunrise as steam rises from D-side power station. Shot steelworks and other heavy industrial plants in 2016, Flintshire, Wales. And so they tell you right here, this is steam. It's not burning coal or smog. It's just pictures of steam made to look ominous. This is a scary one. It looks like the depths of hell itself. A wildfire burns uphill. That's the scariest way a fire can burn, I guess. A wildfire burns uphill in the Appalachian Mountains. I love Appalachia. Never been there, but I read a book once that said it's nice. Wow, okay, let's see what else. Oh, more Asian people in masks. A woman and child wear masks on a polluted day in Beijing, which I thought was every day, but okay, I guess that's a warning to us when the people in the East are wearing masks. I guess we need to get a bunch of painters masks. I don't know. This guy here on the right doesn't seem too concerned. He's just like, yeah, whatever. I'm good. Here's a kid in trash. Let's see. World Environment Day, Dimapur, India, June 2019. So somehow climate change is making this poor little kid live in garbage. And here's a good one. Gordon Easter and Gail Hale embrace as they return to what remains of their home on Hopper Lane in Coffey Park, October 2017 in Santa Rosa, Northern California, after a wildfire. And for some reason they started making out here, and somebody started filming it, but then I guess that's just California for you. Here's we gotta definitely feel bad about this one for certain reasons. More than 6, I guess that's million metric tons of lead slag form Black Mountain. Black Mountain. A 30-meter pile of toxic lead waste that still contains a sizable quantity of lead, copper, manganese, and zinc in Kabwe, Zambia. So I guess this is kind of like Detroit here. Or not Detroit, Flint, Michigan. Oh, and look, there's a bunch of people also. I didn't see them. A bunch of people, I don't know, huddling down by the garbage. Something's burning back there, and then a kid just drinking. That's all your fault. And here's what they can't show anymore. Kids make the most of drifting snow in Worcestershire, December. Man, look at he's sledding. I love sledding. It was so fun when I was a kid. I guess the days of seeing images of that are over because you've got to feel bad all of the time. And here, a woman plays with her dog in a park in Moscow, Russia. Wow, playing with my dog in the snow was so fun. But, kiss those pictures goodbye because we just all have to be depressed and sad all the time. Maybe even alcoholics. It seems most journalists are, they lie so much they can't even live with themselves without being constantly drunk. And so let's all be depressed like a journalist. It'll be really interesting to see if all the journalists out there get the memo and see if these climate change articles, just look for it in the future and see if these climate articles start showing you sad people or crying people. And I'm interested to see if they get rid of happy images in magazines and stuff. I guess it's all just darkness. And so you could see how this works. This is really this is a pretty evil rhetoric. You could call it like a dark magic. It's meant to keep you in a state of fear, a state of anxiety, definitely ridden with guilt. And it's all to manipulate you, to get you almost like these old Catholic indulgences where you could buy a pardon for original sin and whatever other sins you've committed since then. And it's just a way to manipulate you, create a fog of misunderstanding. And there's no talk of educating the public, which is what you would expect to see. No, they're employing these people. It's essentially a commercial. Behavioral psychologists and people with expertise in manipulation and marketing. I saw a real interesting debate between a billionaire and this female activist, and the billionaire pointed out, he goes, if you buy a home, a piece of real estate, and you have a creek by that house, even if that creek is only 2 or 3 inches wide, you're required to get flood insurance. Some people spend hundreds of dollars every single year on flood insurance for these little tiny creeks, and it seems like such a joke. But insurance companies know that even 1 inch of flooding can cause thousands of dollars of damage to a home. And what he pointed out is not one financial institution, not any of these one percenters, none of these billionaires, none of these people taking these risks, loaning you money to buy real estate, require any sort of global warming insurance. Low-end estimates on sea level rise is something like 10 feet. And that also got me to thinking, nobody is buying up real estate up in the mountains. Just think of how valuable that will be. People aren't flocking to Denver in fear. If you remember during Y2K, there was people that were legitimately afraid. They were selling all of their possessions and buying bunkers and getting 10, 20 years worth of food and drinkable water. And, they looked like fools when it turned to the year 2000 and nothing happened. But there was genuine fear. I mean, I don't see any of these groups of hippies out there protesting, starting communes up in the mountains where they will be safe from rising sea level. Nobody wants to live up there. Nobody's moving to higher ground. I mean, at least when Noah knew that a flood was coming, he built a boat. I don't even see one hippie out there with a boat. It's like the crisis nobody takes seriously. It's all political. It's all to push policy. And just like a magician's magic trick, once you see behind the scenes, behind the curtain, once you see what they're doing, the trick doesn't work anymore. It's kind of funny and kind of pathetic. But I just want to conclude by saying, I, for one, am going to be really sad if these journalists retire the polar bear on ice.